Hello, everybody. Time for our sadly final spooky comics chat of this year, unless we decide to keep it going after Halloween because it's 2020 and there are no rules. And if we want to make it spooky, we will. So, as always, it's me, Alexander from LaSalle branch, and Kara, who, where are you these days?
I'm at the North Liberty branch.
I love North Liberty. All right. So, I think Kara's first with her monster of chat.
So my first book I'm talking about is American Vampire by Scott Snyder and Stephen King, and it's illustrated by Raphael Albuquerque. And this is a American vampire story. As you can tell, it's more like a vampire western. It takes place in the 1920s, and there are heavy western elements within this. And it's got a complex hierarchy of like new and old vampires, and these new American vampires differ from the classic kind of vampires in that they can walk in the sun, and then they are weakest on the night of a full moon. So it's kind of an interesting story, really bloody and gruesome if you're really looking for something like that as we approach Halloween. There are some graphic elements, mainly in like the violence. So be on the watch out for that. This is definitely for adults, and it's available in both Hoopla and print.
And it reminds me similarly of 30 Days a Night, which I almost picked but could not get a physical copy of. Speaking of vampires in America, if you want gory vampire stories, definitely look that one up too. Way better than the movie. All right, my first monster is, you knew this was coming, Swamp Thing.
Yay.
Somebody had to do it finally. I couldn't find my copy of Alan Moore's Saga of Swamp Thing. I think it might be in Missouri at a friend's place, but the new issues are good. If you don't know Swamp Thing, basically you have Dr. Alec Holland, who's a botanist, dies, gets absorbed by the green, which is kind of the spirit of nature, and resurrected as the Swamp Thing to protect nature. All sorts of neat powers that have to do with like growing nature and absorbing things, but most importantly, in the Alan Moore Saga Swamp Thing, he beats the tar out of Batman when he goes to Gotham. And Batman's like, why is Gotham being overrun with plants? And then Swamp Thing just destroys him. It's awesome. Anyway, one of my all-time favorite monsters. He's a good guy monster. And I just realized the phone rang in the middle of my thing. But I think I got through it okay. So I think it's time for Kara's next one.
My next one is The Walking Dead. So another monster one. These are zombies, obviously. And the idea here is that after getting shot, a policeman wakes up in the ICU, and it turns out that he was like comatose through the beginning of this zombie apocalypse. And he wakes up and he finds zombies all over the place. So he's like, what's going on? And eventually he makes his way to this camp where his wife and son are staying. And this is really like a survival type story. So they're living out in the wilderness and figuring out how to survive when civilization is no more. And it's also about some of the things that he missed while during the beginning when he was comatose. There is, of course, the TV series The Walking Dead, which this one is based on, and the video game The Walking Dead involves different characters, but there is one crossover character in this. And yes, I have also done the video game, and it is pretty cool.
Those Telltale games are excellent, by the way. If you just like narrative that is very graphically driven, I don't think that we could technically talk about it here at Comics Chat, but definitely, guys, check these out on Steam. They're so good. The Fable one is amazing.
Yes, and they're kind of like choose your own adventure type games. So if you want something that connects with this comic, that's a really good choice.
Good call pointing that one out. I'm going to skip ahead to my bonus monster since we mentioned video games. So I was going through the comics in my branch today, and I realized that if a monster is in Zelda, it counts because there's a manga. So my favorite Zelda monster is Midna. Yeah, the Dark World. She turns Link into a wolf and then rides him around and then forces him to build her helmet. Anyway, that was just technicality. My real next monster choice is Monstrous by Marjorie Liu and Sana Takeda. This is a neat epic fantasy that takes place in the aftermath of a war between Arcanics, who are kind of like magical creatures. You meet a young Arcanic in here with like fox ears and a foxtail, but most can pass as human. And then there are these sorceresses who consume them for power. And Micaiah is an Arcanic who has a severed arm that has a demon that sometimes pops out of it and tries to take control of her, but also gives her tons of power. And it's about her struggling, at least this issue, struggling to contain this nice creepy demon that comes out of the stub of her severed arm.
The
So
art in that is just also beautiful. Like if
this
nothing
this
else,
is
read it for the
this
art.
is one of my favorites. I've been sitting on talking about this one since spring. I just didn't ever find a good theme for it. So definitely check this one out, guys. I believe it's available on Hoopla, but we have multiple physical copies in a lot of the branches.
Mhm.
Definitely go grab them while you still can. So I believe that does it for our monster edition and our last official spooky one, unless you guys want us to do more spooky comics, in which case,
Tell
I
us.
guess.
Yeah.
But one thing I do want to remind everyone before we go, don't forget January 14th at 7 p.m. We're going to do Comics Chat on Tap in conjunction with Books on Tap. So, but this way, it's virtual. You can do it in your pajamas. You can just grab whatever beer you got around the house. Don't have to drive home. You can just hang out. Way more comfy, way more librarian friendly.
Yeah, and if you normally like to go to Books on Tap, this is just like an extra session that you can join and to talk specifically about comics. And we're going to be joined by Sarah Maloney. So definitely sign on and join us, and we're going to have a lot of fun.
All right. Thanks as always for joining, guys.
See you next time.